Now the next thing that we'll be talking about is the menstrual cycle. So what is this menstrual cycle? Menstrual cycle is nothing but the reproductive cycle. Okay, it is what? It is the reproductive cycle in primates. Okay, in primates, and of course we are talking about females here. Alright, so previously, in the previous lectures, we've already understood the process of oogenesis and everything. Now we are going to, align everything with this menstrual cycle. So what is this menstrual cycle? Menstrual cycle, it occurs in female primates. What are these primates? Monkeys, apes, and humans. Alright, menstrual cycle includes shedding of the endometrium of the uterus through vaginal bleeding followed by proliferation to prepare itself for implantation. Okay, a particular menstrual cycle, it has a lot of events. Okay, it has the bleeding phase, then there is the proliferation phase, and then after that, what is going to happen? Ovulation process is going to happen. Then there is the luteal or the secretory phase. So all these phases, they are making this menstrual cycle. Okay, so there are a lot of events which are happening throughout the menstrual cycle. Now see, menarche. What is menarche? It is the first menses at about 12 to 16 years of age, right? When a female hits puberty, at that time this process of menstrual cycle starts, and the term that we use for that is menarche, beginning of menstrual cycle or beginning of menses. Then we have menopause. What is menopause? Stoppage of the menstrual cycle. So of course, it makes sense. If the menstrual cycle is going to stop, the process of ovulation will also stop. Okay, so the stoppage of ovulation and menses at the age of 45 to 50 years is nothing but menopause, right? The term has pause in it. So the menstrual cycle gets paused at about 45 to 50 years of age in females. Now the period of the menstrual cycle is counted from the day of the onset of the flow to the next onset after 28 days. So the entire period of the menstrual cycle, it is about 28 days. Okay, of course it can vary. It can go to 30 days or to 32 days. That of course it is going to vary. Menstrual cycle, it involves three phases. First is the menstrual phase, second is the follicular phase, and the third one is the luteal phase. Okay, so now we'll be understanding all these phases one by one. Okay, before that, let's have a look at the summary of the menstrual cycle. What all things we have to focus on? See, during the entire process, during the entire cycle, what we'll be focusing on, we'll be talking about the thickness of the endometrium. Okay, phases we have already established. What are the phases? First is the bleeding phase. Okay, second is the proliferative phase. Or the follicular phase, and the third one is your luteal phase or the secretory phase. Okay, so during all these phases, what we'll be talking about, what we'll be focusing on, we'll be focusing on how the thickness of endometrium is, how the development of the follicle is going on. We'll be talking about the levels of the gonadotropic hormones, your LH and FSH. We'll be talking about the levels of the ovarian hormone, the estrogen and the progesterone, right? Okay, so now see here, 0 to 5 days. So the first 5 days, they fall into this bleeding phase. If you're going to see here, the levels of the hormones are low. Estrogen, progesterone, LH, FSH, they are not significant here. Let's move to the thickness of the endometrium. This is the bleeding phase. What is happening? The endometrium is shedding. See here, what is the situation of the endometrial lining? It is shedding. Okay, now after this we are going to enter into the next phase, which is the proliferative phase or the follicular phase. Now here what is happening, the levels of FSH and LH are going to increase. FSH is going to influence the development of the follicles, right? Primary follicle is going to develop into, or it is going to mature into Graafian follicle. That is the most important event which is happening here. Okay, now with the development of the follicles, the cells of the follicles, they also secrete estrogen hormone. So we will also see an increase in the level of this estrogen hormone in this phase. Okay, and we will also see recovery of the endometrial lining. The endometrium thickness is also increasing in this phase. So at about 14th day of the menstrual cycle, if we are taking that the period of the menstrual cycle is 28 days, then about on the 14th day, the luteinizing hormone levels, they increase. See here, what is this called as? This is called as LH surge. Okay, this is called as LH surge, and because of this LH surge, what is going to happen? See here, what is happening? What is happening here? The Graafian follicle, the Graafian follicle is rupturing. What is happening to the Graafian follicle? It is rupturing. This ruptures, and rupturing means what is happening? Process of ovulation is happening. So process of ovulation is linked to which event? It is linked to the LH surge. All right, very important point. Now the ovulation has happened. We know that Graafian follicle after ovulation, it transforms into which structure? It transforms into corpus luteum, and we are getting a very important hormone for corpus luteum. कॉर्पस ल्यूटियम से हमें कौन सा हार्मोन मिलता है? प्रोजेस्टेरॉन, राइट? अब देखो वहां पे इन दैट पर्टिकुलर फेज यू आर गोइंग टू सी इंक्रीज इन द लेवल्स ऑफ प्रोजेस्टेरॉन. यहाँ पे देखो प्रोजेस्टेरॉन लेवल्स इंक्रीजिंग. व्हाट इज इट सिंकिंग विद? कॉर्पस ल्यूटियम. ठीक है, अगर प्रेगनेंसी स्टैब्लिश हुई, this corpus luteum is going to be maintained. The levels of the progesterone are going to be high. Pregnancy is not established. What is going to happen to the corpus luteum? It is going to degenerate. Along with that, the progesterone levels are going to go down and the next menstrual cycle is going to begin. ठीक है, progesterone जो है वो यहाँ पे जो एंडोमेट्रियम थिकनेस है उसको मेंटेन करके रखता है. इफ द प्रोजेस्टेरॉन लेवल्स विल स्टार्ट टू गो डाउन, द एंडोमेट्रियल थिकनेस विल आल्सो reduce. The endometrium will start shedding and the next menstrual cycle is going to begin from the bleeding phase. All right, so this is the entire summary of the menstrual cycle, and this part is very important. This chart, it tells us everything. This is very important. Okay, this is very important. Chale, let's move forward now. Let's talk about the first phase of the menstrual cycle, which is the menstrual phase. So menstrual flow occurs and lasts for about 3 to 5 days. The duration of each of the phase is also very important. The endometrial lining of the uterus breaks along with the blood vessels, which form a red fluid and results in the menstrual flow. Now, if the ovum is fertilized by a sperm, the menstrual flow does not occur, and hence this indicates pregnancy. Menstrual blood loss is about 40 to 80 ml. Okay, GnRH, FSH, LH and estrogen are at low levels. We had already seen this part in the chart. Clotting does not occur. Now clotting, this is talking about the menstrual blood. The menstrual blood does not clot because of the presence of fibrinolytic enzyme. This part has been asked as question in a previous years. So this is important. What is the reason that the menstrual blood does not clot? Because it has fibrinolytic enzyme. Now the next phase of the menstrual cycle is the follicular phase. Now in this phase, the primary follicles in the ovary, they grow to become a fully matured follicle, right? We had seen that the LH and FSH levels, they started to increase. Endometrium also regenerates through proliferation. right? Changes in the pituitary hormone and the ovarian hormone induce the formation of the Graafian follicle and the regeneration of the endometrium. Next, secretion of the gonadotropins like luteinizing hormone and follicular stimulating hormone increases gradually. What is happening to LH and FSH we had seen at the beginning? They are increasing. They increase gradually during this phase and stimulates follicular development as well secretion of the estrogens by the growing follicles. So everything we had seen in the chart, LH FSH increase हो रहा था, follicles का growth हो रहा था, the cells of the follicles are secreting estrogen, उसकी वजह से estrogen levels जो है वो भी increase हो रहे थे, right? Both LH and FSH, they attain a peak level in the middle of the cycle about 14th day. Rapid secretion of LH leading to its maximum level during the mid cycle is called as LH surge, and this LH surge is related to ovulation. This LH surge is going to induce the rupture of the Graafian follicle and it is going to result into ovulation. So this LH surge induces the rupture of the Graafian follicle and thereby the release of the ovum is known as ovulation. Secondary oocyte arrested at metaphase of second meiotic division, right? Same story we had seen a lot of times in the previous lecture. Okay, now the next is the luteal or the secretory phase. In this phase, the ruptured part of the Graafian follicle is going to transform into the yellow body, which is called as the corpus luteum. What this corpus luteum is going to secrete? It is going to secrete large amounts of progesterone. So the corpus luteum secretes large amounts of progesterone hormone, which maintains the endometrium for implantation of the fertilized ovum. Now, during pregnancy, all events of menstrual cycle stop and there is no menstruation, right? Once the pregnancy is established, what is going to happen? This entire event of menstrual cycle, that is not going to happen. Now, in the absence of fertilization, the corpus luteum degenerates, hence causes disintegration of the endometrium, leading to menstruation and a new cycle begins. Because see, when we were talking about progesterone hormone, we have discussed everything in the summary of the menstrual cycle. When we were talking about progesterone, this is important for maintaining endometrium thickness. Okay, now because the pregnancy has not established, the corpus luteum starts to degenerate, the progesterone levels, they start to come down, and with the coming down of the progesterone levels, what is happening? The disintegration of the endometrium is happening and the next menstrual cycle is going to start. Okay, so now we have completed the menstrual cycle. Now let's talk about the questions which are related to this. Now see. First question is the correct sequence of the various phases of a typical menstrual cycle is. Let's not read the options. Let's first frame our own answer. We started with the bleeding phase or the menstrual phase. Then after the menstrual phase, we had seen LH and FSH increase the follicular development. So next is the follicular or the proliferative phase. Then after this, what was happening? Ovulation was happening. And after the ovulation, we had the luteal or the secretory phase. Luteal or the secretory phase. Chalo, answer ढूंढते हैं. Menstrual, follicular, ovulatory and secretory. B is the answer. This is the correct sequence of menstrual cycle. ठीक है? Chalo, next question. In the absence of fertilization, what happens to corpus luteum? It stops secreting progesterone but increases the secretion of estrogen, right? जब हम corpus luteum की बात करते हैं, estrogen के बारे में नहीं सोचते हैं. Stop secreting estrogen but increases the secretion of progesterone. देखो, absence of fertilization है. In absence of fertilization, In absence of fertilization, this corpus luteum, it degenerates. Okay, so with the degeneration of the corpus luteum, the progesterone levels, they go down, right? They go down. Okay, तो आंसर ढूंढते हैं. Stop secreting estrogen but increases the secretion of the progesterone. No. Increases the secretion of both progesterone and estrogen. No. Degenerates, right? In the absence of fertilization पूछा है question में. चलो next. Which of the following is secreted only during the luteal phase of menstrual cycle? Luteal phase मतलब we are talking about corpus luteum, okay, और yellow body. इस पे भी question आ चुका है. ये क्या secrete करता है? It secretes progesterone, right? आंसर ढूंढ लेते हैं. LH, FSH, estrogen, progesterone. What is going to be our answer? Our answer is going to be progesterone, right? Next. Which event is incorrectly matched with the time of its occurrence with respect to 28 days menstrual cycle? Beginning of the menstrual flow day 1, correct है. Ovulation day 14, correct है. Beginning of the proliferative phase, right? देखो सबसे पहले menstrual phase होता है. Duration of the menstrual phase हम लोग मान के चलते हैं 3 to 5 days. और उसके बाद से next phase start हो जाएगा. That is the proliferative or the follicular phase. So this is also correct. Peak secretion of estrogen on day 22. No. डे 22 प्रोजेस्ट्रॉन की अगर यहाँ पे बात करी होती तो फिर हम लोग शायद मान सकते थे. ईस्ट्रोजन नो. ओके, क्वेश्चन क्या पूछा है? इनकरेक्टली मैच्ड पूछा है. आंसर क्या हो जाएगा? डी हो जाएगा, राइट? द आंसर इज गोइंग टू बिकम डी. नेक्स्ट, follicular atresia. What is follicular atresia? हम लोगों ने देखा था how the number of the follicles it degenerated from birth till puberty. उसी को हम लोग follicular atresia बोल रहे थे. Formation of corpus luteum, no. Degeneration of follicles, right? B is going to be the answer. C option, formation of Graafian follicle, no. Increase in number of follicles, no. Follicular atresia is decrease in the number of follicles. Okay, so what is going to be the answer? B is going to be the answer here. Chalo. Next question. Estrogen is secreted by the theca cells of the Graafian follicle, right? हम लोगों ने जब follicular phase देखा था, at that time what was happening? The levels of the estrogen was also going up. So that estrogen was coming from where? It was coming from the cells of the follicle only. All right. So see, corpus luteum, no. Corpus luteum is progesterone. Germinal epithelium of the ovary, no. Pituitary gland, no. Answer is going to be theca interna of the Graafian follicle. Next question. Atretic follicle is, right? अभी देखो इसको रिलेट करना है follicular atresia से. क्या हो रहा था? Follicles जो हैं वो डेवलप नहीं हो रहे थे, वो degenerate हो रहे थे. So see, which are not developed and completely degenerate? Other name of corpus luteum, no. Which extruded its oocytes, no. Graafian follicle, no. Answer is what? A. Which are not developed completely and they are going to degenerate. Such follicles are atretic follicles. Okay, so the answer is going to be A here. Next question. Corpus luteum develops from, so corpus luteum develops from Graafian follicle, right? We have already seen, what was happening. There was primary follicle was developing into secondary follicle into tertiary follicle into Graafian follicle, and Graafian follicle में ovulation हो रहा था, rupture हो रहा था, right? It was rupturing, to release secondary oocyte, and it was transforming into yellow body called as corpus luteum. So what is going to be our answer? Corpus luteum develops from Graafian follicle. All right. Next question. Process by which Graafian follicles are formed in the ovary. What is it called as? It is called as folliculogenesis. Oogenesis, no. Luteinization, no. All, of course, no. Folliculogenesis, simple sa question hai. All right. Next question. First menstrual cycle starts at puberty, right? 12 to 13, 12 to 14 years of age when a female is going to hit puberty. And what is the term that we use for that? We use the term menarche. Okay, we use the term menarche. So answer is going to be puberty. All right. Menstrual cycle is generally off. 28 days, but then again it can vary. It can be for 30 days, 35 days. It is going to vary from female to female.